Welcome to the Tech Story Podcast, where storytellers kibitz about technology that makes us go, what's that about? Now introducing your host, Doug Thompson.
In this episode of the Tech Story Podcast, we meet Catenya McHenry. She's an author, a TV producer, a podcast host now, and star of her own reality show, Moms That Can't Cook. We talk about her storytelling began at an early age when her father would put her in little skits that he'd produce. He's a fantastic storyteller as well. We talk about engineering needed for socks, and there's so much more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode with Catenya McHenry.
Okay. And as a news person, I'm pretty sure you're that and the producer. You're probably pretty good about storytelling, and that's why I like that.
I try.
Okay. Hey, everybody! Welcome to the Tech Story Podcast. I am honored to have another Austinite who's suffered through the winter snowpocalypse storm with me. It's Catenya McHenry. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Now that we're out of the ice, yeah. I'm doing great. Nice to see the sun.
It is amazing. I saw you in your Instagram post or something about this. With this blinding light out here, it's hard to believe a week ago we were shivering in a hole somewhere. And life was a lot different. You know, you sort of grew an appreciation for what my parents used to have, and you know, when electricity wasn't quite that reliable. But now I'm researching a generator, so.
Yeah, I know. I think the entire state will be, if they don't have one, yeah. I think everybody in the state will be looking or probably already looking for generators.
Yeah, it's going to be in demand. That and plumbers to fix the lines.
Right. Exactly.
On. So tell the audience about yourself.
Well, let's see. Where do I start? I'll start from where I am now and then work backwards. So I currently am at the University of Texas at Austin. I'm a communications director for one of the colleges. And previous to that, I had my own PR and marketing firm and also a production company that is an extension of that. I no longer have no longer have the PR firm, obviously, because of what I do currently, but I still have the production company. So I am currently in the midst of producing a couple of shows for streaming platforms and also a podcast. Previous to that, I've been in television, and that part of my life goes back for about 20 years or so in television. So I was in television news for a long time and then migrated out of news into lifestyle television. So I traveled around the country, hosting lifestyle segments. So basically, mainly product segments that you see on the Today Show, the top 5, whatever tech gadgets of the year. I hosted those kinds of segments. And then previous to that, I was at KXAN. I was at KXAN twice, and in fact, have been at KXAN 3 times in my 25, well, I shouldn't say that, I'm aging myself, my 2-decade-long career. Most recently, I was at KXAN working on a special pandemic project that was a solutions-based project called Pandemic Pass or Fail. That was really great. And what I loved about that was we were focused on stories that were solutions-oriented. So, you know, I've done thousands of stories on problems, but these kinds of stories were very focused on what is the problem, but what is the solution. So I was really excited to be fortunate enough to work on that project. So that was just over the last 6 months or so. And then before that, I started my career right out of college in Lafayette, Louisiana at the CBS station KLFY in Lafayette, where I was an education reporter and also host. So that's where I got my start. And then I stayed pretty much in education type news throughout my career. I love education. I love what education is. Most of my family are educators and have advanced degrees. So education has always been a very strong part of my life. So I was really excited to be able to cover stories in education. So that's the summary. Along the way, I have 3 children, one in college now, which is so insane that he's in college. And then I have one in high school and one in middle school that is soon to be in high school. So, that kind of sums up my life. But everything I've done has been focused on stories and storytelling. So when you reached out to me, I was really excited about this because I feel like that's at the core of who I am is a storyteller.
Well, I think that's a great answer to my question is what's your story? And you're a storyteller and you came about it sort of interesting ways. And as you were mentioning your backstory, what do you get to sleep? That's one of the questions, because I don't even how you fit all that stuff in a day. That is amazing.
Well, I don't know when I sleep, and I feel like I have been so sleep deprived through the years that I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever get caught up on sleep.
Yeah, I maybe you're blessed, one of those blessed people that don't need that much, and you can get by on a lot less. I annoy my wife because I get up at 4:30 every day, and that sort of annoys her. But then I'm asleep at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, taking a nap wherever I'm at.
Yeah, that's when I'm just getting started. It's 8:30 or 9. Yeah. I'm much like my dad. He doesn't need a lot of sleep. If I get 5 hours, I'm good. I'm good for a full day. So I think, I just and I try to sleep in, but I can't, and it drives me crazy. So I just get up and start doing something.
Yeah, and I find I get a lot of stuff done in those quiet hours when there's not much going on. That's when I'm most productive to do that.
Yeah.
So, what got you into storytelling? I mean, obviously everything that you've had, and you forgot to mention you're a sock magnet too as well.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that. But what especially let's take TV for example, and all on that. When you were talking, especially when you got to sort of these lifestyles or these these top things, what did you look for? What did you think about when you were coming up with this story?
So I didn't realize this until probably halfway through my career, that my origin in storytelling began as a child. My dad is a storyteller. He was a photographer. Well, he is a photographer. And growing up, he had a production company, and he would shoot all kinds of things. He would shoot highlight reels, weddings. But even before he opened the production company, he would write these elaborate scripts. And we each had a part. There's 6 children in my family, and each of us would have a part in these skits about all kinds of stuff. And so I have the ability to memorize a large portion of material. So he realized that about me, and he would give me these gigantic pieces of material to memorize. And so we would perform these skits in the garage, and he would edit them together. And he still has these today, these VHS. Many people don't know what a VHS tape is, but I know you know what a VHS camera and VHS tape is.
I was waiting for you to say it was going to be on 35 millimeter or 8 millimeter.
He had that too. He shot 35 millimeter, 16 millimeter. He still has a projector, and he still has a 35 millimeter camera.
Wow.
It's incredible. Of course, those days it didn't have sound, but I mean, it's amazing to watch that stuff. So when we get together, he'll pull out the screen and we'll sit and watch these, and it's so cool to see all these stories. So anyway, that's where my origin of storytelling began. And so, obviously high school, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in college, but I was a public speaker. I was on the debate team. I did all these things that were kind of forward facing, but not really realizing, I hadn't really made the connection of what my strengths were at that time. So in high school, it was my English teacher that encouraged me to join a public speaking contest. And so I went to this competition somewhere. I can't remember where exactly it was. Anyway, I came in first place in the competition, and not even thinking that was that big of a deal. It was just like, oh, that's great. I won a medal. Like, yay, what am I going to do with that? So then the summer before I went to college, watching the news was just a thing in our family. And I watched the news every day with my mom. And so then it was a reporter that I saw. I can't remember the story that she produced, but when I saw the story, I was like, that's what I want to do. So went to school, studied broadcast journalism, broadcast communications. And the first semester, I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. I love stories. I love people's stories, and I love discovering what's behind the story, because I think there's always a story underneath. Depending on what happens, there's always a backstory to how that person got to where they were which is where I picked up in the story. So I loved, and I'm very curious. I loved asking questions. You know, when we were younger, they called that you were nosy, and that was a very negative thing. It had a very negative connotation. I like to think of it now as being curious and having a strong sense of curiosity. So I think that's where my foundation of storytelling began, was just in the beauty of curiosity and not being afraid to ask questions. So that, of course, developed into storytelling. And I love talking to people. If you give me an hour, well, I could talk to you for an hour. But my family, we love to talk. My dad loves to talk. And like I said, I'm very curious, and I love asking questions. I love learning about things that I didn't know about before. And becoming a reporter gave me the privilege of being able to cover a lot of stories, but learning something new every single day, because I had a different story every single day that I was in charge of. So I love that. I love the variety of the week.
I would love to meet your dad at some point in time. He sounds like a fantastic man. And you mentioned the movies were silent; they didn't have sound. And I find that photographers and painters and artists like that, they tell stories from a different medium. It's not with the spoken word, it's very visual and stuff. And back in those days when you didn't have the sound, there was still a story that your dad saw into that. Did he ever sort of coach you into what to look for, or do you just sort of pick up on it?
No, I think in storytelling, I think you either have it or you don't. Like a photographer, you either have a photographic eye or you don't. You either are able to see the story in the setting, or you miss it. So I think it is an innate ability to be able to see what the story is, and to also slow down enough to recognize the story that's happening right in front of you. So I think much of at least for me, I think it's innate, and I think it's my dad too, because he can just see it, and it's captured in thousands of photographs. And I think it's easy to miss too if you're not paying attention. But I think you have to have an ability to be able to stop and listen and see and absorb what you're seeing.
Yeah, I'm a little bit like you, other than I can't memorize a sentence in that. So I'm good at improv. I can go on, and that's why I'm in sales. 'Cause I can talk and ask questions and all. So it's a perfect thing for me, asking questions and doing that.
Sure.
But I think that I think we're very common in that we have that. It's unconscious. We don't know we have that. So much like you, I sort of discovered, I thought everybody could do what I did when I was in sales and I would go on. I didn't think there was anything unique about it. I just sort of had the ability to sort of take complex technology and explain it in a language that was maybe a marketing person would understand, or a CEO. So I would sort of tailor it to their level. I would say I could tell a story from a janitor to a CIO, or CEO. I could adjust the story. And it wasn't until we tried to hire people for a role similar to mine. One of my managers at the time says, look, we can't, we went through a lot of candidates. There's just nobody there that tells a story like you do. And they were looking for that. I said, really, what are you talking about? I didn't think it was unique. And then I went back to a high school reunion. I won't go into how far that was, because that'll age me as well and make you look quite young. We had some memorabilia sitting there, and there was this note, an excuse for being tardy. And I was, a Coke truck dropped all this Cokes on the freeway, so I was late. And it was my name was on it, and I recognized the bad handwriting. I said, "Oh God!" I'd been a storyteller for a while, it was approved, so obviously I sold it to them. But it's that I think I call it thinking in stories. Is the way, as a news person, you probably did the same thing. Here's the facts, and what's the story behind it. And I think that's the most important thing. And that's, if you think about what's the story behind it, then the things sort of falling into place. Yeah. As opposed to having to enjoying the story that goes on. So I think that's a unique skill that it's easier for some of us than others, but I think everybody can learn to tell better stories. Sure. I think, and it starts with listening, like you said. Yeah. So, and so you moved on from TV, and you're hosting your own, you're producing and hosting your own thing about the mom and the can't cook her. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I am producing and hosting a show called The Mom Who Can't Cook Show. And really, it is my own personal experience of not knowing how to cook. And even beyond that, I never learned how to cook because I was kicked out of the kitchen when I was younger. I went through this very clumsy stage, which I think a lot of teenagers do. But my mom, after I broke too many pieces of her china, she said to me, "Okay, your job now is just putting ice in the glasses. That's it." So I never was around food and the preparation of food. Also, my grandmother was an amazing cook, and she made everything from scratch. And I'm not a very patient person. And so watching her prepare things, it just took a long time. And I was like, no way. I'm out of here. That takes too long. Making a cake takes way too long. I'd rather just go to the store and buy it. But obviously it doesn't taste the same. I mean, her food was just amazing. Everything she made was with love. So I think through those two experiences, the kitchen was not a place that I enjoyed being because everything took too long to prepare when it was prepared correctly. So anyway, I never learned how to cook. So now I have 3 children, and we're accustomed to doing drive-through and takeout. So every time I made a meal when they were younger, one of my 3 children was crying because the food tasted horrible and they didn't want to eat it. So I saw an opportunity. But then I also talked to a lot of friends who had the same experience where, they would make dinner and it would come out horrible and they'd end up throwing the food away and doing drive-through. And I thought maybe that's something because there's so many more people, at least in my circle, that have that experience. So maybe it's not just us. Maybe there are more people. I also love watching cooking shows, but every show on the Food Network and the Cooking Channel, everything is perfectly plated. And I just felt like that's not reality. Like reality TV is not reality because it doesn't come out perfectly. And even the things that I tried, that I saw on these cooking shows didn't come out the way that did on the episode or in the magazines. Nothing came out perfect like that. And what I realized was that everything is staged. That's not real. I think there are a lot more disasters than what people let on to. So I wanted to take a different look and show a different perspective of kitchen experiences. And what I've realized is that more people have disasters than what we realize. So that's what the show is about. The show is about just how the struggle of putting something decent on the table that your children will eat, and an exploration of learning what food is. And I love food, but I don't know anything about it. I don't know how flavors go together. I don't know what you're supposed to pair together so that you have a balanced meal. I don't know any of that. So anyway, that's the show. And it's hilarious because my goal and the reveal at the end is whether or not I've actually burned something or burned down the kitchen.
I've got my share of Pinterest fails around here too.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think we all have, right?
Yeah,
so
it is the real world. So what's the audience? What's the feedback on that? What you've gotten from that? What's sort of the response?
The feedback has been really great, and really it's been a surprise because again, I didn't know what it would be like. I just felt like I needed to give people another perspective. And I needed to let people know that, hey, it happens to all of us, right? So I think people just I heard a television producer say many years ago that people just want what's real, right? And when you think about that, that is exactly true. People just want what's real. And so if we allow ourselves to be a little bit more vulnerable and open ourselves up and show that we are humans and yes, we make mistakes, then that resonates. So the feedback has been really great. So I don't know what'll happen with it. I'm still in production. We were on hiatus for a little bit right after COVID hit. So now we're picking back up. But I hope that it gets noticed and picked up by one of the major networks. So we'll see what happens. I would love to be on Netflix.
No, it would be worthwhile. Everybody likes humor in it and seeing that there's other human people, right? It's not perfect like you see on TV on a lot of these other cooking shows, which nobody can do, or God bless them if they can.
Exactly, right?
So is it, and I think you've tapped into part of the storytelling is also seeing the need and being able to put together that if I'm experiencing this, there's probably others. And at heart, and I'm speaking on your behalf, which I think is true, is that we want to give other people's perspective and let them know that they're not alone in these things, right?
Absolutely.
And, yeah. And I mean, that's my, when I was mentioning earlier at McCombs, I went out and I give this talk to these master students who's way smarter than, I have to, like I said, I have to look up every third word on their resume, what they're talking about. But as I listen to them talk to each other, they have a totally different language. It might as well be French or German or something else going on when they're talking. But when I get up there and I ask them, okay, tell me why I should hire you, which is really the first job that you have, or first sales job you have, is selling yourself in an interview. Why should I hire you? I can hire anybody here and not get fired because everybody here is brilliant. But what makes you stand out across them? And they struggle. They start to read this. So I try to give them tools and a way to rethink about things and think about, and it is, when your storytelling dawned on you, you reflected back about what really made you passionate, what really, you sort of felt the environment about that. And I say, what excites you? What are you going on to do with these other things that they don't think is important, but that's what makes us uniquely us in what we could do. So, and I want to compliment you. I would admire that your skills and stuff that you've had to come on, and now you've come up with the socks. So please, the socks story. I got to hear this.
So, in 2016, I invented magnetic socks to stay together in the laundry so you never lose them. They're called soulmate socks, like the bottom of your foot, soulmate. And again, it came from a personal experience. 3 children, loads of laundry. Every time I did a load of laundry, somebody was missing a sock. It happens so often. There's a scientific formula, a mathematical formula for lost socks that a couple of European scientists came up with. If you wear socks, you know that you've either lost one or you're walking around in your laundry room somewhere with a sack of singles. So I started on this exploration, this journey of trying to find some kind of gadget that would keep socks together because it was so frustrating. And I was even to the point of making sure the children folded their socks together and put them in the laundry basket together. And I made sure to take them from the laundry basket, put them in the wash, and that didn't work because they went from the washing machine to the dryer. You know this experience, and you pull everything out of the dryer and you end up with one sock. And it was the most frustrating thing, and it kept happening. So I was online, went to the mall, went to all these stores looking for some kind of gadget. There was nothing on the market, at least there wasn't at that time, to keep socks together. So I started thinking about how I could create something. Was it a little clothespin? I thought no, because I didn't want to give people an extra step. I wanted the product to be the solution, right? Because if you give them a clothespin, well, you may forget to put them together. Like it's just one more thing you have to think about. I wanted to create something that people didn't have to think about. They could take their socks off and just throw them into the laundry. So I spent about 18 months of just visiting with magnet specialists. There are magnet specialists that exist. There are scientists who study magnets, who study the strength of magnets, how magnets are used in industry. You think about the products that you have. Like I had a couple of handbags that are, the closure is a magnet. So I just spent about 18 months in R&D just trying to figure out how to create a solution. So obviously the solution is proprietary, but we figured it out. So it was really a matter of, okay, how do magnets behave in the laundry? What's the thickness that the socks have to be in order for the magnets to keep their strength? And then when you change water agitation or temperature, how do magnets behave? How do you make sure the product is not dangerous, right? So that was all a part of the exploration. So anyway, after 18 months of all of that and visiting with manufacturers in a couple of different places of the country, we came up with a product. Well, I came up with a product that is the solution. So I didn't want to just create a solution, though. I wanted to make sure the product was also fun, enjoyable to wear, and it was a high quality product. So the socks are knitted from bamboo. which I'm sure you know all about bamboo. They're moisture wicking, they're breathable, it's sustainable. Bamboo doesn't need a lot of human intervention. I wanted to make sure that it was a product that also took into account our environment and was friendly to the environment. So bamboo is amazing. They're sewn with the extra cushion footbed and a reinforced heel and toe, because my children, they would go through socks by the week. Their toes would be poking through the socks with holes in them. So I wanted to make sure that we addressed that too. So anyway, I did a lot of focus groups and talked to sock lovers about what they enjoy about socks and what they really, what they needed in their socks. So they're great for people, obviously, who are on their feet all day, people who are outdoorsy, people who love to camp. The magnet will stick to the side of your tent. And they're easy to wash, and your feet won't get wet while you're camping or outdoors. And then I wanted to create something fun and vibrant. So you won't see anything that's a plain black sock or a plain white sock in the store, in our online store. They're all fun, happy, vibrant colors. And that's really, again, a reflection of storytelling. I wanted to tell the story that they're not only problem solvers, but everything we do is based in love and fun and joy. And so I wanted them to be a joyful thing that people look forward to looking for and reaching for and also wearing. So
I'm a sock person. That's sort of my signature type thing when I go out. I like fun socks. So I bought some. And unfortunately, I can't read, and I bought some for my grandkids now because they're way too small for me to put on, but I'll be buying some more. But the customer service, and here's the story that you didn't tell because you're humble about it, but the customer service there was fantastic. They contacted me, letting me know each line, staying in touch. Hey, we want to do this thing. I want to compliment you on that, because that gets to be, that's what really keeps people coming back is you care, right? And I think everything that you've done in your career has shown that you care, be it TV reporting. I'm sort of doing a synopsis of what your story.
Yeah.
You know, as you learn from your dad about telling a story and you know, putting kids in there, and then being in the TV and finding journalism and stuff, telling stories, especially in education, finding things to either move people to improve their lives or take action, or sometimes it's just feel good. I mean, stories have different purposes with that. And then going on to your socks that you've got on, and you went through the whole hero's journey with this. You know, here we meet the sock. We keep losing the socks. There's scientific proof. I think Far Side had a cartoon where there's somebody in a parallel universe getting all these other socks too. So that's where they all go. You know, so it's just fantastic that you've got this. And now, as sort of wrap this up, I understand you're going to be starting a podcast soon.
Yes. So again, in my years of storytelling and exploring, one of the things I've been curious about a lot of things, but one of the things I've been most curious about is what fear does to people and how people are negatively affected by fear, and how fear paralyzes them from doing something they know in their hearts they need to do. So the podcast originally was going to be my second book. My first book is called Married to a Narcissist, Enduring the Struggle, Finding You Again. One of the tactics that narcissists use to keep you under control is fear. And so if they can frighten you or tell you that you can't do something, or they're going to do something to you if you decide to do something for yourself that's better for yourself, and it's convincing, and it works. And it worked for me for a long time, but I finally was able to break free of it. So as I was thinking about writing my second book, I was trying to think about what I wanted to say and what I still needed to get out and still needed to say. I realized I didn't want to go back to that dark place of talking about that very horrible experience and relationship. And so I started thinking about my own experiences with fear and how not only it affected me, but how it affects other people. And in television news, you see so much fear a part of whatever that story is, and how much fear is a part of people's lives. And so I really wanted to focus on that, the psychology of it, why it happens, and why we allow it to affect us. Because fear, it's not tangible, right? It's in the story that we tell ourselves. So anyway, the podcast, it's called Fuck Fear. I hope it's okay that I say that. You can bleep me out. But basically, it's me saying to fear, and that is what I said when I was going to this, this metamorphosis of realizing who I am and my personality. I finally said, fuck fear. Like, why am I afraid? And I ended up writing a chapter called that. It was too late to include in my first book, so I held on to the chapter. And so anyway, the podcast is a reimagination of what would have been my second book. So we look at fear in life, fear in relationships, fear in your career, and fear in parenting. And I think we face fears in all of those 4 categories. So anyway, my guests are everyday people who are struggling or have struggled with their own fears. And then I also have on experts who are able to talk us through ways and how to get through that fear so that we can let go and live more peacefully and live more freely. So it's launching in March. Cool. And I'm really excited to explore it. It's been fantastic already. We're in the middle of recording episodes right now. And it's been so empowering, enlightening, and also very freeing as well.
And it's perfect for somebody who likes to talk. You get the microphone. It's like, so welcome to the podcast club. It's something you like to do. And I'm sure your guests and stuff would be fantastic. And I like how you followed it up with what was probably one of the contributing factors to your previous book was the fear that you had. The insecurities and things that you had that allowed you to be taken advantage of.
Sure.
So I think that's fantastic because we all have fear. I mean, I did a TED talk on the subconscious mind, and the fear is meant to protect us, but now it's sort of mutated to this thing where it doesn't protect us. It does us more harm than good.
Right.
Because life has been somewhat easy. We don't have to run from dinosaurs anymore. Right. And so, but subconscious, I got to do something. So I'm just going to, I'm going to abuse you. So, so thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wonderful stories and your storytelling capabilities and your goals in life. And at the end of the day, I think the storytellers we're on a mission to help others. That's the reason we like to do that and help others learn from our stories as well. So what's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can go to my website, which is Catenya.com. It's Catenya.com. From there, you can go to the contact button, send me an email. I'm all over social media at Catenya. You can find me anywhere. I'm not as active on Facebook anymore. I'm more active on Instagram and Twitter. But anyway, I'm there. You can find me anywhere.
And we'll put the links in the show notes along with the bio on that. And I'll try to find a pair of those socks that fit me, and I can take a picture of those as well because it's really great. So thank you again. It's great to meet somebody just down the road. Once we can get out and meet face-to-face again, I'd love to have coffee with you.
Same here. I'd love to as well. Thank you, Doug. This has been so great.
Thanks a lot. Hey, thanks for listening to the Tech Story Podcast, and it would really be helpful if you'd go out to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast and rate it. Give it a 5-star because it helps other people find the podcast. It really raises the visibility, and it would mean the world to me if you would do that.